Hey, good afternoon, y'all. Meteorologist John Homenuk with Empire Weather. Hope you guys are doing well. A little bit of a quiet week here, wrapping up our day today. And just wanted to provide a quick overview on the upcoming weather pattern and exactly what to expect as to how things are going to evolve. This will be a shorter video. I know it's a light week for a lot of people. A little bit of a transition here between the holidays and then New Year's coming up. So obviously the big cold pattern is a distant memory at this point, and we have a very large trough digging into the western United States over the next couple of days. If we back up and look at what's happening across North America, we can easily understand why, right? We have troughing in the Gulf of Alaska extending all the way into the western U.S. This is the culprit of this is a very long and extended Pacific jet stream, and that has totally unraveled the high latitude blocking that was present across the country over the last couple of days. And so we've talked about that Pacific jet. Let's go take a look at it for a moment before we dive in back into the pattern in the United States. And if we look at what's happening in the Pacific, pull up the jet stream, you see this very long, very extended Pacific jet coming all the way from Eastern Asia with quite a bit of amplitude and speed into the western shores of the United States. So this is a powerhouse of a Pacific jet, and all this mild Pacific air and all this momentum from the North Pacific is making its way into the United States. As a result of that, we have a deep trough carving out in the western U.S., and we have warm temperatures moving into the central and eastern United States. That pattern is going to stick around likely for several days, with this deep troughing continuing in the Gulf of Alaska. And if we look at what this does to us from a temperature perspective across the country, is it really blows out any cold and keeps temperatures well warmer than normal across a large majority of the country as we move into the first week of January. Now, from a precipitation perspective, if we look at what's happening across the country, obviously anytime you bring deep troughs like this into the western shore of the U.S. over and over and over, you're going to get quite a bit of wind, and you're going to get quite a bit of storminess. And this is a very, very active jet. Look at these troughs just pouring in one by one into the western United States. So from a precipitation perspective, if we look at the anomalies on the model guidance in the United States, there's quite a bit of precipitation. I want to go over to the European ensemble here just to take a different look at it. But there's a lot of precipitation continuing for the next several days into the first week of January, with above normal precipitation in parts of the northern plains, the west coast getting hammered with rainfall, and then additional rains in parts of the Mississippi River Valley into the southeast states and all the way up the east coast. This is a very, very active pattern. 7-day totals, right? Here we have the potential for more than 2 inches of rainfall in the next week across a large majority of the Mississippi River Valley down into the Ohio Valley and even into the southeast states from Alabama, Mississippi, even further westward into LA, as well as parts of Arkansas and northward. So this is quite a bit of rain. Remember, it wasn't too long ago these areas really needed rainfall. Now we're seeing quite a bit of rain in these areas. This northern part of this system is likely falling in terms of snowfall. So if we look at the European ensemble and we roll this forward a bit, this northern part of that is snow. So we have snow across parts of northwestern Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota getting hit hard. And quite a bit of snowfall potential in the Rocky Mountains as well. There's a lot of precipitation falling in these regions over the next 7 days. And even if we continue to roll this forward, we see that these areas are getting hit repeatedly thanks to that troughing. So the troughing looks likely to persist all the way into the first week of January. See, the models are very consistent with that. And that, at this point, is 10 to 14 days away, getting to the extended part of the forecast. So the majority of the forecast window is very warm on almost all models at this point, with guidance keeping this pattern in place until about the 10th of January. If we back up and look at what's happening across the hemisphere at this time, the United States and Europe both very warm, the U.S. taking the brunt of it, as is Canada, with that Pacific jet really directly impacting the country. And if we look at where things stand here on the 10th of January, we still have a strong Pacific jet extension. But as we roll this forward and we look a little closer to late month, what we see happening is the core of that jet retracting back towards Eastern Asia. That is going to be the first sign that this pattern is beginning to undergo changes. And we also see a signature here if we look just at the heights, right? Not the colors, just these black lines here. That's a ridge forming in the western coast of the U.S. If we look at the geopotential heights, you can see it. Here's your ridging poking northward into Alaska. That is one of the first signs that the pattern is going to start to change. And you'll notice that our western U.S. trough has been replaced with a ridge, all because we've retracted that Pacific blocking and now have a Gulf of Alaska or Aleutian trough forming. And so that's going to be our first sign, and that'll set in motion some changes, because once this ridging starts to go, we will see troughing eventually develop in the eastern United States, and temperatures should begin to come down off those high values from mid to late January. Looking at the weeklies, just for an idea as to how this might go, and you roll the weeklies forward, all of a sudden, as we look at the period from the 17th forward, we see a big ridge poking into Alaska and troughing in the eastern United States. And so your temperature anomalies trend all of a sudden cooler across the country as a result of that, because we're not getting that Pacific jet just hammering the country with warmth anymore. From a precipitation perspective, what that likely is going to mean is that this big active pattern will eventually quiet down a bit across the middle part of the country. But we could still see an active pattern in the eastern United States. It's all going to depend on where that sort of troughing anomaly develops as we move into the middle to latter part of January, and we watch this ridging develop on the west coast. But again, it's very warm and very active until then. We're going to be carefully watching for when that jet pulls back. That's going to be our signature, our sign that the pattern's going to begin to change, and those cooler risks will begin to emerge. That's all we got for today. We're in a bit of a transitional period. If you guys have any questions, give us a shout. We're here 24/7. We'll have more videos coming this week. Have a great afternoon.